All right, let's see if everybody can get this going. Am I live? Yes. Okay. Hi, Mary. Yeah, check out the kids' story time. That was Monday night at 7 p.m. last week. I think I did. This is Bartholomew's Passage, a family story for Advent that I did. I did the first day, well, the first week, but I only did the first day of it because it's only one day. But Advent. And I think I did this one, but I'm not sure. So, and I think I also did this one. I don't know how many I did. I may have done 3. I'm not really sure. I may have even done this one. But let's start off with our prayer. The Armor of God prayer. It is in Ephesians 6. You can look it up on any search engine also. Hi, Jane. I'm going to be doing the little kids story time on Monday night at 7 p.m. again. So let's get the Armor of God prayer going, guys. The armor of God. I put on and stand firm with the belt of truth buckled around my waist. I am safe and secure with the breastplate of righteousness, guarding my heart from evil, helping me live a life that honors you. I diligently put on the gospel shoes of peace, willing to go wherever you ask of me. I take and stand behind the shield of faith, protected against Satan's fiery darts of doubt, fear, lies, and deceit. Now on my head I place the helmet of salvation, keeping my mind on you. I grab hold in my hand of the sword of the Spirit, the word of God, sharp and true. And I'm prepared to live today in spiritual victory in Jesus' name. Amen, folks. Amen. And I have I have one of the men, sorry guys, of one of the men's favorite Bible verses. And I do have the women's favorite Bible verses. I'll read those and I'll let you know where they're from. I'm going to do the women's first. It's from Psalm 16, verses 5 and 6. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. Yes, we do, folks. Yes, we do. Hi, Cleo. And here's for the men, if we do get any men in here tonight. This is from Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, folks. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And that's for both the men and the women. I got to put those away next. But I think next week or on Monday, I got this on Saturday, folks. I got this at Ollie's. So that's 25 stories. So I'll have some good stories. Maybe I'll do the full month of December next year. Yeah. I also have like this one, Snow for Christmas. Sorry, guys. I'm still not used to doing it. But no snow for Christmas. Anybody that's like out in Texas or California, Arizona, New Mexico, any of the states that don't get snow, that would be a good one for anybody that does not have snow for Christmas. Then I have like the fox's story. Oh, sorry, guys. I have a whole bunch. They're cute. Like this one, the story of Jesus. The candy cane. Yeah, I know. There was no snow. And deserts really don't get snow, do they? Because I guess that's where they were. And then got this one one small donkey. And here's one that has, like, I believe a whole bunch. Hark, a Christmas sampler. And what can I give him? And Christmas love letters from God. So those will be every Monday night up until Christmas week. But I'm going to start my Jesus, the Son of Man by Khalil Gibran, I guess. And the first one we're going to read is on James, the son of Zebedee, on the kingdoms of the world. So let's get going. Upon a day in the spring of the year, Jesus stood in the marketplace of Jerusalem, and he spoke to the multitudes of the kingdoms of heaven, or of the kingdom of heaven. And he accused the scribes and the Pharisees of setting snares and digging pitfalls in the path of those who long after the kingdom. And he denounced them. Now amongst the crowd was a company of men who defended the Pharisees and the scribes, and they sought to lay hands upon Jesus and upon us also. But he avoided them and turned aside from them and walked towards the north gate of the city. And he said to us, my hour has not yet come. Many are the things I still have to say unto you, and many are the deeds I shall yet perform, ere I deliver myself up to the world. Then he said, and there was joy and laughter in his voice, let us go into the north country and meet the spring. Come with me to the hills, for winter is past, and the snows of Lebanon are descending into the valleys to sing with the brooks. The fields and the vineyards have banished sleep and are awake to greet the sun with their green figs and tender grapes. And he walked before us, and we followed him that day and the next. And upon the afternoon of the third day, we reached the summit of Mount Hermon, and there he stood looking down upon the cities of the plains, and his face shone like molten gold. And he outstretched his arm, and he said unto us, behold, the earth in her green raiment, and see how the streams have hemmed the edges of her garments with silver. In truth, the earth is fair, and all that is upon her is fair. But there is a kingdom beyond all that you behold, and therein I shall rule. And if it is your choice, and if it is indeed your desire, you too shall come and rule with me. My face and your faces shall not be masked. Our hands shall hold neither sword nor scepter, and our subjects shall love us in peace, and shall not be in fear of us. Thus spoke Jesus, and unto all the kingdoms of the earth I was blinded, and unto all the cities of walls and towers. And it was in my heart to follow the Master to his kingdom. Then just at that moment, Judas of Iscariot stepped forth, and he walked close up to Jesus and spoke and said, behold, the kingdoms of the world are vast, and behold, the cities of David and Solomon shall prevail against the Romans. If you will be the king of the Jews, we shall stand beside you with sword and shield, and we shall overcome the alien. But when Jesus heard this, he turned upon Judas, and his face was filled with wrath. And he spoke in a voice terrible as the thunder of the sky, and he said, get you behind me, Satan. Think you that I came down the years to rule an anthill for a day? My throne is a throne beyond your vision. Shall he whose wings encircle the earth seek shelter in a nest abandoned and forgotten? shall the living be honored and exalted by the wearer of shrouds. My kingdom is not of this earth, and my seat is not builded upon the skulls of your ancestors. If you seek aught save the kingdom of the Spirit, then it were better for you to leave me here and go down to the caves of your dead, where the crowned heads of your hold court in their tombs and may still be bestowing honors upon the bones of your forefathers. Dare you tempt me with a crown of dross when my forehead seeks the Pleiades, or else your thorns? Were it not for a dream dreamed by a forgotten race, I would not suffer your sun to rise upon my patience, nor your moon to throw my shadow across your path. Were it not for a mother's desire, I would have stripped me of the swaddling clothes and escaped back to space. And were it not for sorrow in all of you, I would not have stayed to weep. Who are you and what are you, Judas Iscariot? And why do you tempt me? Have you in truth weighed me in the scale? Hi, Daryl. Have you in truth weighed me in the scale and found me one to lead legions of pygmies and to direct chariots of the shapeless against an enemy that encamps only in your hatred and marches nowhere but in your fear? So we do not fear anything, folks. I do not fear death. I welcome it because Jesus is waiting for me and I will be at peace. I won't have any pain or anything. That's what we should look forward to. Yes, I know people are scared of death. Oh, what am I reading, Daryl? It is called this, Jesus, the Son of Man. I'm just reading the first chapter of it, and it is James. It's about James, the son of Zebedee, and on the kingdoms of the world. So, all right. Who are you and what are you, Judas Iscariot, and why do you tempt me? Have you in truth weighed me in the scale and found me one to lead legions of pygmies and to direct chariots of the shapeless against an enemy that encamps only in your hatred and marches nowhere but in your fear? Too many are the worms that crawl about my feet, and I will give them no battle. I am weary of the jest and weary of pitying the creepers who deem me coward, because I will not move among their... Oh, sorry, guys. My computer being weird. I must have pushed my thing. Sorry. Too many are the worms that crawl about my feet, and I will give them no battle. I am weary of the jest and weary of pitying the creepers who deem me coward, because I will not move among their guarded walls and towers. Pity it is that I must needs pity to the very end. Would that I would turn my steps toward a larger world where larger men dwell, but how shall I? Your priest and your emperor would have my blood. They shall be satisfied ere I go hence. I would not change the course of the law, and I would not govern folly. Let ignorance reproduce itself until it is weary of its own offspring. Let the blind lead the blind to the pitfall, and let the dead bury the dead till the earth be choked with its own bitter fruit. My kingdom is not of the earth. My kingdom shall be where 2 or 3 of you shall meet in love and in wonder at the loveliness of life and in good cheer and in remembrance of me. This is why we need to forgive the people that have hurt us. I've forgiven everybody that has ever, hurt me. I had a bully in high school. I forgave her, but I also moved my gym class because she liked to trip me up. but I did forgive her because, teenagers are teenagers. We all have a bully somewhere. Maybe in our entire life, even in adulthood, we probably have bullies. But that's not going to stop me from being a peaceful person that loves Christ and that loves each and everybody, no matter what. Then of a sudden, he turned to Judas and he said, "Get you behind me, man. Your kingdom shall never be in my kingdom." And now it was twilight, and he turned to us and said, "Let us go down. The night is upon us. Let us walk in light while the light is still with us." Then he went down from the hills, and we followed him, and Judas followed afar off. And when we reached the lowland, it was night. And Thomas, the son of Diophasian, Diophanes, said to him, "Master, it is dark now, and we can no longer see the way. If it is in your will, lead us to the lights of yonder village, where we may find meat and shelter." And Jesus answered Thomas, and he said, "I have led you to the heights when you were hungry, and I have brought you down to the plains with a greater hunger. But I cannot stay with you this night. I would be alone." Then Simon Peter stepped forward and said, "Master, suffer us not to go alone in the dark. Grant that we may stay with you even here on this byway. The night and the shadows of the night will not linger, and the morning shall soon find us if you will but stay with us." And Jesus answered, "This night the foxes shall have their holes, and the birds of the air their nests, but the Son of Man has not where on earth to lay his head. And indeed, I would now be alone. Should you desire me, you will find me again by the lake where I found you." Then we walked away from him with heavy hearts, for it was not in our will to leave him. Many times did we stop and turn our faces towards him, and we saw him in lonely majesty moving westward. The only man among us who did not turn to behold him in his aloneness was Judas Iscariot. And from that day Judas became sullen and distant, and methought there was danger in the sockets of his eyes. The next story from the book of Jesus, the Son of Man, we're going to be reading Anna, the mother of Mary, the mother of Jesus. All right. Jesus, the son of my daughter, was born here in Nazareth in the month of January. And the night that Jesus was born, we were visited by men from the east. They were Persians who came to Esdraelon with the caravans of the Midianites on their way to Egypt. And because they did not find rooms at the inn, they sought shelter in our house. And I welcomed them, and I said, "My daughter has given birth to a son this night. Surely you will forgive me if I do not serve you as it behooves a hostess." Then they thanked me for giving them shelter. And after they had supped, they said unto me, "We would see the newborn." Now the son of Mary was beautiful to behold, and she too was comely. And when the Persians beheld Mary and her babe, they took gold and silver from their bags, and myrrh and frankincense, and laid them all at the feet of the child. Then they fell down and praised in a strange tongue, which we did not understand. And when I led them to the bedchamber prepared for them, they walked as if they were in awe at what they had seen. When morning was come, they left us and followed the road to Egypt. But at parting, they spoke to me and said, "The child is but a day old, yet we have seen the light of our God in his eyes, and the smile of our God upon his mouth. We bid you protect him, that he may protect you all." And so saying, they mounted their camels, and we saw them no more. Now Mary seemed not so much joyous in her firstborn as full of wonder and surprise. She would look long upon her babe, and then turn her face to the window and gaze far away into the sky, as if she saw visions. And there were valleys between her heart and mine, and the child grew in body and spirit. He was different from other children. He was aloof and hard to govern, and I could not lay my hand upon him. But he was beloved by everybody in Nazareth, and in my heart I knew why. Oftentimes he would take away our food to give to the passerby, and he would give other children the sweet meat that I had given him before he had even tasted it with his own mouth. He would climb the trees of my orchard to get the fruits, but never to eat them himself. And he would race with the other boys, and sometimes, because he was swifter of foot, he would delay so they might pass the stake ere he should reach it. And sometimes when I led him to his bed, he would say, "Tell my mother and the others that only my body will sleep. My mind will be with them till their mind come to my morning." And many other wondrous words he said when he was a boy, but I am too old to remember. Now they tell me I shall see him no more, but how shall I believe what they say? I still hear his laughter and the sound of his running about my house. And whenever I kiss the cheek of my daughter, his fragrance returns to my heart, and his body seems to fill my arms. But it is not passing strange that my daughter does not speak of her firstborn to me. Sometimes it seems that my longing for him is greater than hers. She stands as firm before the day as if she were a bronze image, while my heart melts and runs into streams. Perhaps she knows what I do not know. Would that she might tell me also? All right. And the next one is Asaph, called to the orator of Tyre. That's the next one. What shall I say of his speech? Perhaps something about his person lent power to his words and swayed those who heard him. For he was comely, and the sheen of the day was upon his countenance. Men and women gazed at him more than they listened to his argument, but at times he spoke with the power of a spirit, and that spirit had authority over those who heard him. In my youth, I heard the orators of Rome and Athens and Alexandria. The young Nazarene was unlike all of them. They assembled their words with art to enthrall the ear, but when you heard him, your heart would leave you and go wandering into regions not yet visited. He would tell a story or relate a parable, and the like of his stories and parables had never been heard in Syria. He seemed to spin them out of the seasons, even as time spins the years and the generations. He would begin a story thus: the plowman went forth to the field to sow his seeds, or once there was a rich man who had many vineyards, or a shepherd counted his sheep at eventide and found that one sheep was missing. And such words would carry his listeners into their simpler selves and into the ancient of their days. At heart, we are all plowmen, and we all love the vineyard. And in the pastures of our memory, there is a shepherd and a flock and the lost sheep. And there is a plowshare and the winepress and the threshing floor. He knew the source of our older self and the persistent thread of which we are woven. The Greek and the Roman orators spoke to their listeners of life as it seemed to the mind. The Nazarene spoke of a longing that lodged in the heart. They saw life with eyes only a little clearer than yours and mine. He saw life in the light of God. I often think that he spoke to the crowd as a mountain would speak to the plain, and in his speech there was a power that was not commanded by the orators of Athens or of Rome. The next story is about Mary Magdalene. It was in the month of June when I saw him for the first time. He was walking in the wheat field when I passed by with my handmaidens, and he was alone. The rhythm of his step was different from other men's, and the movement of his body was like naught I had ever seen before. Men do not pace the earth in that manner, and even now I do not know either whether he walked fast or slow. My handmaidens pointed their fingers at him and spoke in shy whispers to one another, and I stayed my steps for a moment and raised my hand to hail him, but he did not turn his face, and he did not look at me, and I hated him. I was swept back into myself, and I was as cold as if I had been in a snowdrift, and I shivered. That night I beheld him in my dreaming, and they told me afterward that I screamed in my sleep and was restless upon my bed. It was in the month of August that I saw him again through my window. He was sitting in the shadow of the cypress tree across my garden, and he was still as if he had been carved out of stone, like the statues in Antioch and other cities of the North Country. And there's a picture of Mary's face, I believe. And that is really cool. Hi, Cindy. Cindy, I'm reading Jesus, the Son of Man. We just did Mary Magdalene, Anna, the mother of Mary, and James, the son of Zebedee. And it'll still going on for Mary Magdalene. And my slave, the Egyptian, came to me and said, "That man is here again. He is sitting there across your garden." And I gazed at him, and my soul quivered within me, for he was beautiful. His body was single, and each part seemed to love every other part. Then I clothed myself with raiment of Damascus, and I left my house and walked towards him. Was it my aloneness, or was it his fragrance that drew me to him? Was it a hunger in my eyes that desired comeliness, or was it his beauty that sought the light of my eye? Even now, I do not know. I walked to him with my scented garments and my golden sandals, the sandals the Roman captain had given me, even these sandals. And when I reached him, I said, "Good morrow to you." And he said, "Good morrow to you, Miriam." And he looked at me, and his night eyes saw me as no man had seen me. And suddenly I was as if naked, and I was shy. Yet he had only said, "Good morrow to you." And then I said to him, "Will you not come into my house?" And he said, "Am I not already in your house?" I did not know what he meant then, but I know now. And I said, "Will you not have wine and bread with me?" And he said, "Yes, Miriam, but not now." "Not now, not now," he said. And the voice of the sea was in those two words, and the voice of the wind in the trees. And when he had said them unto me, life spoke to death. For mind you, my friend, I was dead. I was a woman who had divorced her soul. I was living apart from this self which you now see. I belonged to all men and to none. They called me a harlot and a woman possessed of 7 devils. I was cursed and I was envied. But when his drawn eyes looked into my eyes, all the stars of my night faded away, and I became Miriam, only Miriam, a woman lost to the earth she had known, and finding herself in a new place. And now again I said to him, "Come into my house and share bread and wine with me." And he said, "Why do you bid me to be your guest?" And I said, "I beg you to come into my house." And it was all that was sod in me, and all that was sky in me, calling unto him. Then he looked at me, and the noontide of his eyes was upon me. And he said, "You have many lovers, and yet I alone love you. Other men love themselves in your nearness. I love you in yourself. Other men see a beauty in you that shall fade away sooner than their own years. But I see in you a beauty that shall not fade away. And in the autumn of your days, that beauty shall not be afraid to gaze at itself in the mirror, and it shall not be offended. I alone love the unseen in you. Then he said in a low voice, go away now. If this cypress tree is yours, and you would not have me sit in its shadow, I will walk my way. And I cried to him, and I said, Master, come into my house. I have incense to burn for you, and a silver basin for your feet. You are a stranger, and yet not a stranger. I entreat you, come into my house. Then he stood up and looked at me, even as the seasons might look down upon the field. And he smiled, and he said again, all men love you for themselves. I love you for yourself. And then he walked away. But no other man ever walked the way he walked. Was it a breath born in my garden that moved to the east? Or was it a storm that would shake all the things to their foundations? I knew not, but on that day the sunset of his eye slew the dragon in mine, and I became a woman. I became Miriam, Miriam of Midjadel. And then the next one is Philemon, a Greek apothecary. The Nazarene was the master physician of his people. No other man knew so much of our bodies and of their elements and properties. He made whole those who were afflicted with diseases unknown to the Greeks and of the Egyptians. And they say he even called back the dead to life. And whether this be true or not true, it declares his power. For only to him who has wrought great things is the greatest ever attributed. They say also that Jesus visited India and the country between the two rivers, and that there the priest revealed to him the knowledge of all that is hidden in the recess of our flesh. Yet that knowledge may have been given him direct by the gods, and not through priest, for that which has remained unknown to all men for an eon may be disclosed to one man in but a moment, and Apollo may lay his hand on the heart of the obscure and make it wise. Many doors were opened to the Tyrians and the Thebians, and to this man also certain sealed doors were opened. He entered the temple of the soul, which is the body, and he beheld the evil spirits that conspire against our sinews, and also the good spirits that spin the threads thereof. Methinks it was by the power of the opposition and the resistance that he healed the sick, but in a manner unknown to our philosophers. He astonished fever with his snow-like touch, and it retreated. And he surprised the hardened limbs with his own calm, and they yielded to him, and were at peace. He knew the ebbing sap within the furrowed bark, but how he reached that sap with his fingers, I do not know. He knew the sound steel underneath the rust, but how he freed the sword and made it shine, no man can tell. Sometimes it seems to me that he heard the murmuring pain of all things that grow in the sun, and that then he lifted them up and supported them, not only by his own knowledge, but also by disclosing to them their own power to rise and become whole. Yet he was not much concerned with himself as a physician. He was rather preoccupied with the religion and the politics of this land. Hello, how are you, dude? I don't know how to say your name. El Senor. And this I regret, for first of all things, we must needs be sound of body. But these Syrians, when they are visited by an illness, seek an argument rather than medicine. And pity it is that the greatest of all their physicians choose rather to be but a maker of speeches in the marketplace. And our next one is going to be Simon, who is called Peter. That's the next story, guys. I was on the shore of the lake of Galilee when I first beheld Jesus, my Lord and my Master. My brother Andrew was with me, and we were casting our nets into the waters. The waves were rough and high, and we caught but few fish, and our hearts were heavy. Suddenly Jesus stood near us, as if he had taken form that very moment, for we had not seen him approaching. He called us by our names, and he said, "If you will follow me, I will lead you to an inlet where the fishes are swarming. And as I looked at his face, the net fell from my hands, for a flame kindled within me, and I recognized him. And my brother Andrew spoke and said, 'We know all the inlets upon these shores, and we know also that on a windy day like this, the fish seek a depth beyond our nets.' And Jesus answered, 'Follow me to the shores of a greater sea. I shall make you fishers of men, and your net shall never be empty.' And we abandoned our boat and our net and followed him. I myself was drawn by a power, viewless, that walked beside his person. I walked near him, breathless and full of wonder. And my brother Andrew was behind us, bewildered and amazed. And as we walked on the sand, I made bold and said unto him, 'Sir, I and my brother will follow your footsteps, and where you go, we too will go. But if it pleases you to come to our house this night, we shall be graced by your visit. Our house is not large, and our ceiling not high, and you will sit at but a frugal meal. Yet if you will abide in our hovel, it will be to us a palace. And would you break bread with us? We in your presence were to be envied by the princes of the land.' And he said, 'Yeah, I will be your guest this night.' And I rejoiced in my heart. And we walked behind him in silence until we reached our house. And as we stood at the threshold, Jesus said, 'Peace be to this house and to those who dwell in it.' Then he entered, and we followed him. My wife and my wife's mother and my daughter stood before him, and they worshipped him. Then they knelt before him and kissed the hem of his sleeve. They were astonished that he, the chosen and the well-beloved, had come to be our guest. For they had already seen him by the river Jordan when John the Baptist had proclaimed him before the people. And straightway my wife and my wife's mother began to prepare the supper. My brother Andrew was a shy man, but his faith in Jesus was deeper than my faith. And my daughter, who was then but 12 years old, stood by him and held his garment as if she were in fear he would leave us and go out again into the night. She clung to him like a lost sheep that has found its shepherd. Then we sat at the board, and he broke the bread and poured the wine. And he turned to us, saying, 'My friends, grace me now in sharing this food with me, even as the Father has graced us in giving it unto us.' These words he said ere he touched a morsel, for he wished to follow an ancient custom that the honored guest becomes the host. And as we sat with him round the board, we felt as if we were sitting at the feast of a great king. My daughter, Petroelia, who was young and unknowing, gazed at his face and followed the movements of his hands, and I saw a veil of tears in her eyes. When he left the board, we followed him and sat about him in the vine arbor. And he spoke to us, and we listened, and our hearts fluttered within us like birds. He spoke of the second birth of man, and of the opening of the gates of the heavens, and of the angels descending and bringing peace and good cheer to all men, and of angels ascending to the throne, bearing the longings of men to the Lord God. Then he looked into my eyes and gazed to the depths of my heart. And he said, 'I have chosen you and your brother, and you must needs come with me. You have labored, and you have been heavy laden. Now I shall give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn of me. For in my heart is peace, and your soul shall find abundance and a homecoming.' When he spoke thus, I and my brother stood up before him, and I said to him, Master, we will follow you to the ends of the earth, and if our burdens were as heavy as the mountains, we would bear it with you in gladness. And should we fall by the wayside, we shall know that we have fallen on the way to heaven, and we shall be satisfied. And my brother Andrew spoke and said, Master, we would be threads between your hands and your loom. Weave us into the cloth, if you will, for we would be in the raiment of the Most High. And my wife raised her face, and the tears were upon her cheeks. And she spoke with joy and said, Blessed are you who come in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the womb that carried you, and the breast that gave you milk. And my daughter, who was but 12 years old, sat at his feet, and she nestled close to him. And the mother of my wife, who sat at the threshold, said not a word. She only wept in silence, and her shawl was wet with her tears. Then Jesus walked over to her, and he raised her face to his face, and he said unto her, You are the mother of all these. You weep for joy, and I will keep your tears in my memory. And now the old moon rose above the horizon, and Jesus gazed upon it for a moment, and then he turned to us and said, It is late. It is late. Seek your beds, and may God visit your repose. I will be here in this arbor until dawn. I have cast my net this day, and I have caught 2 men. I am satisfied, and now I bid you good night. Then my wife's mother said, But we have laid your bed in the house. I pray you enter and rest. And he answered her, saying, I would indeed rest, but not under a roof. Suffer me to lie this night under the canopy of the grapes and of the stars. And she made haste and brought out the mattress and the pillows and the coverings. And he smiled upon her, and he said, Behold, I shall lie down upon a bed twice made. Then we left him and entered into the house, and my daughter was the last one to enter, and her eyes were upon him until I had closed the door. Thus, for the first time, I knew my Lord and Master. And though it was many years ago, it still seems but today. And here's our next one, folks. Caiaphas, the high priest. In speaking of that man Jesus and of his death, let us consider 2 salient facts. The Torah must needs be held in safety by us, and this kingdom must needs be protected by Rome. Now that man was defiant to us and to Rome. He poisoned the mind of the simple people, and he led them as if by magic against us and against Caesar. My own slaves, both men and women, after hearing him speak in the marketplace, turned sullen and rebellious. Some of them left my house and escaped to the desert, whence they came. Forget not that the Torah is our foundation and our tower of strength. No man shall undermine us while we have this power to restrain his hand, and no man shall overthrow Jerusalem so long as its walls stand upon the ancient stone that David laid. If the seed of Abraham is indeed to live and thrive, this soil must remain undefiled. And that man Jesus was a defiler and a corrupter. We slew him with a conscience both deliberate and clean. And we shall slay all those who debase the laws of Moses or seek to befoul our sacred heritage. We and Pontius Pilate knew the danger in that man, and that it was wise to bring him to an end. I shall see that his followers come to the same end, and the echo of his word to the same silence. If Judea is to live, all men who oppose her must be brought down to the dust. And ere Judea shall die, I will cover my gray head with ashes, even as did Samuel the prophet, and I will tear off this garment of Aaron and clothe me in sackcloth until I go hence forever. That was Caiaphas, the high priest. And here's the next one, guys. Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward. Jesus was never married, but he was a friend of women, and he knew them as they would be known in sweet comradeship, and he loved children as they would be loved in faith and in understanding. In the light of his eyes, there was a father and a brother and a son. He would hold a child upon his knee and say, "Of such is your might and your freedom, and of such is the kingdom of the Spirit." They say that Jesus heeded not the law of Moses, and that he was over forgiving to the prostitutes of Jerusalem and the countryside. I myself at that time was deemed a prostitute, for I loved a man who was not my husband, and he was a Sadducee. And on a day the Sadducees came upon me in my house, when my lover was with me, and they seized me and held me, and my lover walked away and left me. Then they led me to the marketplace where Jesus was teaching. It was their desire to hold me up before him as a test to trap him. But Jesus judged me not. He laid shame upon those who would have had me shamed, and has reapproached them. And he bade me to go my way. And after that, all the tasteless fruit of life turned sweet to my mouth, and the scentless blossoms breathed fragrance into my nostrils. I became a woman without a tainted memory, and I was free. And my head was no longer bowed down. That was Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward. Okay. And that did not have a, yeah. And here's the next one, guys. Rafka, the bride of Cana. This happened before he was known to the people. I was in my mother's garden tending the rose bushes when he stopped at our gate. And he said, "I am thirsty. Will you give me water from your well?" And I ran and brought the silver cup and filled it with water. And I poured it into a few drops from the jasmine vial. And he drank deep and was pleased. Then he looked into my eyes and said, "My blessings shall be upon you." When he had said that, I felt it as it were a gust of wind rushing through my body, and I was no longer shy. And I said, "Sir, I am betrothed to a man of Cana in Galilee, and I shall be married on the 4th day of the coming week. Will you not come to my wedding and grace my marriage with your presence?" And he answered, "I will come, my child." Mind you, he said, "my child," yet he was but a youth, and I was nearly 20. Then he walked on down the road, and I stood at the gate of our garden till my mother called me into the house. And there is a very weird picture, but I'm going to show it. Everybody, I don't exactly know what kind of picture it is, but it's just weird. On the 4th day of the following week, I was taken to the house of my bridegroom and given in marriage. And Jesus came, and with him his mother and his brother James. And they sat around the wedding board with our guest, while my maiden comrades sang the wedding songs of Solomon the king. And Jesus ate our food and drank our wine, and smiled upon me and upon the others. And he had heeded all the songs of the lover bringing his beloved into his tent, and of the young vineyard keeper who loved the daughter of the Lord of the vineyard, and led her to his mother's house, and of the prince who met the beggar maiden, and bore her to his realm, and crowned her with the crown of his fathers. And it seemed as if he were listening to yet other songs also, which I could not hear. At sundown, the father of my bridegroom came to the mother of Jesus and whispered, saying, "We have no more wine for our guests, and the day is not yet over." And Jesus heard the whispering, and he said, "The cupbearer knows that there is still more wine." And it so was indeed. And as long as the guests remained, there was fine wine for all who could drink. That was the wedding feast of Cana, folks, that Jesus performed his first miracle. Presently, Jesus began to speak with us. He spoke of the wonders of the earth and of heaven, of sky flowers that bloom when night is upon the earth, and of earth flowers that blossom when the day hides the stars. And he told us stories and parables, and his voice enchanted us, so that we gazed upon him as if seeing visions, and we forgot the cup and the plate. And as I listened to him, it seemed as if I were in a land distant and unknown. After a while, one of the guests said to the father of my bridegroom, "You have kept the best wine till the end of the feast. Others, host, do not so." And all believed that Jesus had wrought a miracle, that they should have more wine and better at the end of the wedding feast than at the beginning. I too thought that Jesus had poured the wine, but I was not astonished, for in his voice I had already listened to the miracles. And afterwards, indeed, his voice remained close to my heart, even until I had been delivered of my firstborn child. And now, even to this day, in our village and in the villages nearby, the word of our guest is still remembered, and they say, "The Spirit of Jesus of Nazareth is the best and the oldest wine." 10 more minutes. A Persian philosopher in Damascus, folks. I cannot tell the fate of this man, nor can I say what shall befall his disciples. A seed hidden in the heart of an apple is an orchard invisible. Yet should that seed fall upon a rock, it will come to naught. But this I say, the ancient God of Israel is harsh and relentless. Israel should have another God, one who is gentle and forgiving, who would look down upon them with pity, one who would descend with the rays of the sun and walk on the path of their limitations, rather than sit forever in the judgment seat to weigh their faults and measure their wrongdoings. Israel should bring forth a God whose heart is not a jealous heart, and whose memory of their shortcoming is brief, one who would not avenge himself upon them, even to the third and the fourth generation. Man here in Syria is like man in all lands. He would look into the mirror of his own understanding, and therein find his deity. He would fashion the gods after his own likeness, and worship that which reflects his own image. In truth, man prays to his deeper longing, that it may rise and fulfill the sum of his desires. There is no depth beyond the soul of man, and the soul is the deep that calls unto itself, for there is no other voice to speak, and there are no other ears to hear. Even we in Persia would see our faces in the discs of the sun, and our bodies dancing in the fire that we kindle upon the altars. Now the God of Jesus, whom he called Father, would not be a stranger unto the people of Jesus, and he would fulfill their desires. The gods of Egypt have cast off their burden of stones and fled to the Nubian desert to be free among those who are still free from knowing. The gods of Greece and Rome are vanishing into their own sunset. They were too much like men to live in the ecstasy of men. The groves in which their magic was born have been cut down by the axes of the Atlanteans and the Alexandrians. And in this land also the high places are made low by the lawyers of Beirut and the young hermits of Antioch. Only the old women and the weary men seek the temples of their forefathers. Only the exhausted at the end of the road seek its beginning. But this man, Jesus, this Nazarene, he has spoken of a God too vast to be unlike the soul of any man, too knowing to punish, too loving to remember the sins of his creatures. And this God of the Nazarene shall pass over the threshold of the children of the earth, and he shall sit at their hearths, and he shall be a blessing within their walls and a light upon their path. But my God is the God of Zoroaster, the God who is in the sun, in the sky, and the fire upon the earth, and the light in the bosom of man, and I am content. I need no other God. Here is another one. It's a short one, guys. David, one of his followers. I did not know the meaning of his discourses or his parables until he was no longer among us. Nay, I did not understand until his words took living forms before my eyes and fashioned themselves into bodies that walk in the possession of my own day. Let me tell you this, on a night as I sat in my house pondering and remembering his words and his deeds, that I might inscribe them in a book, 3 thieves entered into my house, and though I knew they came to rob me of my goods, I was too mindful of what I was doing to meet them with the sword, or even to say, What do you do here? What do you here? But I continued writing my remembrance of the master. And when the thieves had gone, and then I remembered his saying, He who would take your cloak, let him take your other cloak also. And I understood. As I sat recording his words, no man could have stopped me, even were he to have carried away all my possessions. For though I would guard my possessions and also my person, I know where lies the greater treasure, folks. That is in our hearts. Jesus is in our hearts and in our minds. Let's see. I'm going to one more. This will be probably the last one. This is Luke. The story of Luke. Jesus despised and scorned the hypocrites, and his wrath was like a tempest that scourged them. His voice was thunder in their ears, and he cowed them. And in their fear of him, they sought his death. And like moles in the dark earth, they worked to undermine his footsteps, but he fell not into their snares. He laughed at them, for well he knew that the spirit shall not be mocked, nor shall it be taken in the pitfall. He held a mirror in his hand, and therein he saw the sluggard and the limping and those who stagger and fall by the roadside on the way to the summit. And he pitied them all. He would even have raised them to his stature, and he would have carried their burden. Nay, he would have bid their weakness lean on his strength. He did not utterly condemn the liar or the thief or the murderer, but he did not utterly condemn the hypocrite, whose face is masked and whose hand is gloved. Often have I pondered on the heart that shelters all who come from the wasteland to its sanctuary, yet against the hypocrite is closed and sealed. On a day as we rested with him in the garden of pomegranates, I said to him, Master, you forgive and console the sinner, and all the weak and the infirm, save only the hypocrite alone. And he said, You have chosen your words well when you called sinners weak and infirm. I do forgive them their weakness of body and their infirmity of spirit, for their failings have been laid upon them by their forefathers, or by the greed of their neighbors. But I tolerate not the hypocrite, because he himself lays a yoke upon the guiltless and the yielding. Weaklings whom you call sinners are like the featherless young that fall from the nest. The hypocrite is the vulture waiting upon a rock for the death of the prey. Weaklings are men lost in a desert, but the hypocrite is not lost. He knows the way, yet he laughs between the sand and the wind. For this cause I do not receive him. Thus our master spoke, and I did not understand, but I understand now. Then the hypocrites of the land laid hands upon him, and they judged him. And in so doing, they deemed themselves justified, for they cited the law of Moses and the Sanhedrim in witnesses and evidence against him. And they who broke the law at the rise of every dawn and break it again at sunset brought about his death. The author, Mary, it's spelled Kahlilgibran. Kahlil Gibran. And I'll show the book. Shoot, sorry guys. I'm still trying to learn. There you go, Mary. I found it at one of the very large book sale that is around here, like in July. It's like 3 days, and these just pop into my thing. I even have a very large Bible, which I'll probably start reading after we're done with the King James Bible. Yes, it is. I'm going to try to read the other Bible that I found when I get done with the King James. So we'll be able to check that out. And there are some interesting things in there that I will share with you all when I get to that new Bible. Okay. And we're going to end tonight with the Armor of God prayer again. And remember, it is in Ephesians 6, but you can look it up on any search engine, folks. The armor of God. I put on and stand firm with the belt of truth buckled around my waist. I am safe and secure with the breastplate of righteousness, guarding my heart from evil, helping me live a life that honors you. I diligently put on the gospel shoes of peace, willing to go wherever you ask of me. I take and stand behind the shield of faith, protected against Satan's fiery darts of doubt, fear, lies, and deceit. Now on my head I place the helmet of salvation, keeping my mind on you. I grab hold in my hand of the sword of the Spirit, the word of God, sharp and true. And I am prepared to live today in spiritual victory in Jesus' name. Amen, folks. Amen. You guys have a very good night. Just remember, Monday night, 7 p.m., I will be reading some Christmas stories for children. Yep. Yes. My husband just got home, if you guys didn't notice. He just got in. So I got to go spend some time with him. Like I said, tomorrow night, 7 p.m., we will be doing a live stream for the kids. So I'll see you later and have a good night. And God bless each and every one of you. Love y'all. Bye.